They stopped inviting me to meetings 6 months before they tried to erase me completely. I noticed it the way you notice a tooth going bad. Not all at once, but in small, persistent aches that you ignore until you can't anymore. First, it was the Monday operations briefings. Then the quarterly reviews. Then the casual Friday check-ins that everyone pretended were optional but weren't. My son Derek coordinated them all. I worked at Meridian Solutions, a mid-sized logistics firm that handles supply chain management for about 40 corporate clients across the eastern seaboard. We're the people who make sure your toilet paper arrives at Costco and your medical supplies reach hospitals on time. Unglamorous work, profitable work. The kind of operation that runs on institutional knowledge and relationships built over decades. I'd been there 23 years. Derek had been there for 5. My office was on the 3rd floor of our headquarters in Baltimore, a converted warehouse building that some developer had gutted and filled with glass walls and open-plan workspaces that made privacy impossible. Everything was visible. Everything was performative. You couldn't have a bad day without everyone knowing about it. I'd argued against the redesign when they proposed it. I'd been outvoted. Derek's office was on the 4th floor, in the corner, with actual walls. His title was Director of Strategic Operations, which meant he attended meetings and made PowerPoint presentations about efficiency metrics while other people did the actual work. He was good at it. He had the right haircut, the right watch, the right way of nodding thoughtfully while saying absolutely nothing of substance. People liked him. People thought he was going places. His wife Jennifer worked in HR. Not as the director, she wasn't quite senior enough for that yet, but as a senior people operations partner, which apparently meant she handled employee experience and workplace culture. In practice, it meant she knew everyone's business and had perfected the art of expressing concern in a way that felt like an accusation. She was very good at her job. They'd gotten married 3 years ago, right around the time Derek's promotion started coming faster. I'd paid for the wedding. An outdoor venue in Annapolis, 200 guests, an open bar that cost more than my first car. Jennifer had wanted everything perfect, and Derek had wanted Jennifer happy, and I'd wanted my son to have a good start to his marriage. I'd given a toast, people had clapped. I'd thought we were fine. My daughter Rachel worked for a consulting firm in D.C., but she came to Baltimore every few weeks for dinners with Derek and Jennifer. She never invited me anymore. When I asked about it, she said they were just catching up, and I was reading too much into things. I stopped asking. The first real sign came during a client retention meeting in March. I'd been handling the Barton medical account for 8 years, built the relationship from nothing, customized their whole distribution network, knew their purchasing directors' kids' names. They were our 3rd largest client by revenue. I'd prepared the quarterly update like I always did. Walked into the conference room with my notes and my laptop ready to connect to the projector. Derek was already at the head of the table. "Dad," he said, and his voice had that bright, brittle quality that people use when they're performing kindness. "I've got this one. You look tired. Why don't you sit in and just listen?" Everyone was watching. Jennifer was there, sitting 2 seats down, her expression carefully neutral. Mark Jessup from finance was there. Linda Okoye from client services. They all looked at me with that same expression, the one that says they've already discussed this without you. "I'm not tired," I said. I know, Derek smiled. "But I've already prepped the deck, and honestly, it might be good to have a fresh perspective on the Barton relationship. Get some new eyes on it. I've been managing Barton for 8 years. Exactly. He said it like he'd proven a point. So you've earned a break. Let me take this one. I should have fought it. I should have said no, sat down at the head of the table, opened my laptop, and proceeded like nothing had happened. Instead, I stood there for 3 seconds too long, and those 3 seconds told everyone in the room everything they needed to know. I sat down in the middle of the table. Derek presented my work as his own. He used my data, my analysis, my relationship notes. When Linda asked about Barton's concerns regarding delivery windows, Derek paused, actually paused, and looked at me. "Dad, you want to field that one?" Like I was there to support him, I answered the question, I kept my voice level, and when the meeting ended, I walked back to my office and closed the door, the one thing the glass walls couldn't take away from me, and sat at my desk for 20 minutes doing absolutely nothing. That was March. By April, my name had stopped appearing on project distribution lists. By May, people had started asking Derek questions about accounts I still technically managed. By June, I'd become a ghost in my own department. Nobody said anything directly. That's not how it works in places like Meridian. You don't fire people who've been there for 23 years. You don't demote them explicitly. You just make them irrelevant. You route communication around them. You stop seeking their input. You let them figure out on their own that they don't matter anymore. I figured it out. What I didn't figure out, not until later, was that it wasn't organic. It wasn't age discrimination or natural succession planning or any of the corporate euphemisms HR uses to explain why people stop mattering. It was coordinated, it was deliberate, and it was coming from my own son. The breaking point came in late August, during the operations update meeting that I'd somehow still been invited to. Maybe it was an oversight. Maybe someone forgot to remove me from the calendar invite. Either way, I showed up. The conference room was full. Derek and Jennifer were there, along with about 15 other people from various departments. I recognized most of them, people I'd worked with for years, people I'd trained, people who used to ask my opinion on things. Nobody looked at me when I walked in. I took a seat near the back. Derek was already standing at the front, advancing through slides on the projector screen. He was talking about process optimization, using terms like agile methodology and scalable solutions. That didn't mean anything concrete, but sounded impressive. I'd heard it all before. I'd sat through 100 meetings like this one. Then Derek clicked to a new slide, and I saw my name. It was buried in a bullet point list under legacy process challenges. The full text read, Resistance to Modernization Efforts, see G. Patterson Feedback Loop Client Communication Protocols. G. Patterson, that was me, Gerald Patterson. He was citing me as a problem, in a presentation, to the entire operations team. I felt something shift in my chest. Not anger, not yet, but something colder. Recognition, maybe. Confirmation of something I'd been trying not to see. I didn't interrupt. I sat there and listened while Derek talked about the need to move past outdated frameworks and embrace new paradigms of client engagement. He never said my name out loud. He didn't have to. Everyone in the room knew who G. Patterson was. When he finished, people clapped. Actual applause, like he'd just announced a breakthrough instead of calling his own father a bottleneck. Jennifer caught my eye across the room. She smiled, the kind of smile that says, I see you and I know you see me and there's nothing you can do about it. I left before the meeting ended. Nobody stopped me. That night, I started going through my emails, not the recent ones, the old ones. The threads I'd been CC'd on and then quietly removed from. The conversations that had moved to different channels without explanation. I went back 6 months, then 9, then a year. I built a timeline. Every exclusion, every process change, every subtle shift in communication patterns. It all pointed back to the same period. February. Right after Derek had been promoted to director. Right after Jennifer had moved from recruiting into her new role in HR. They hadn't just pushed me aside. They'd built a case. They'd documented my resistance to change. They'd created a narrative where I was the problem and they were the solution. And I'd been too stupid to see it happening. I sat in my home office until 3 in the morning, scrolling through emails, taking notes, building my own timeline. My wife Ellen had died 2 years ago, cancer, fast and brutal, and the house had been too quiet ever since. The kids had been supportive for about 3 months after the funeral. Then they'd gotten busy. Then they'd stopped calling as much. Then they'd stopped including me in things. I'd thought it was grief. I'd thought they were giving me space. I'd been wrong. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The email arrived on a Tuesday morning in September. I almost deleted it without reading it. The subject line was, Quick Question Re-Personnel, and it came from Jennifer's work account. We didn't communicate much directly. Most of our interaction happened in group settings or through Derek, so seeing her name in my inbox felt unusual. I opened it. Hi, Gerald. Hope you're doing well. Quick question. Do you have any documentation of your current active projects? We're doing an audit of workload distribution across ops and want to make sure we have accurate records. Could you send me a list when you get a chance? No rush. Jen. It was friendly, casual, the kind of email that seems completely normal until you think about it for 30 seconds. Why would HR need my project list? They had access to the same database everyone else used. Why was Jennifer asking me directly instead of pulling the information herself? And why phrase it as no rush, while also calling it an audit? I read it 3 more times. Then I forwarded it to my personal email and deleted the original. I didn't respond. 2 days later, I got another email. Same friendly tone, same casual phrasing. Hey Gerald, just following up on my previous email. Still need that project list when you have a moment. Thanks. Still didn't respond. On Friday, Derek stopped by my office. He knocked on the glass door frame, a courtesy that felt performative, and stepped inside without waiting for an answer. Hey Dad, you got a second? I was reviewing a logistics report for one of our pharmaceutical clients. I didn't look up. What do you need? Jennifer mentioned she'd reached out about the workload audit. Did you get her email? I got it. Great. He smiled. So can you send her that list? She's just trying to close out the quarter's reporting. I looked at him then, really looked at him. He was wearing a blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up exactly one turn, the look that said, I'm approachable but professional. His hair was freshly cut. He had our family's build, tall and broad-shouldered, but he'd never carried himself the way I did. He'd always been lighter on his feet, more conscious of how he appeared to other people. Why does HR need my project list? I asked. It's just routine reporting. They're documenting capacity across all departments. They can pull that data themselves. Derek's smile tightened slightly. I know, but it's easier if people just send it directly. Saves everyone time. Easier for who? For everyone, Dad. It's not a big deal. I turned back to my computer. Tell Jennifer if she wants data, she can pull it from the system like everyone else. There was a pause. I could feel Derek standing there trying to figure out how to respond. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. Still friendly, but with an edge underneath. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. Because if something's bothering you, we should talk about it. That's what I'm here for. I said everything's fine. Another pause. Then, all right. Well, let me know if you change your mind about the list. He left. I waited until I heard his footsteps fade down the hallway before I opened my personal email and started drafting a message to my lawyer. I didn't have a lawyer. I spent my lunch break finding one. Her name was Patricia Voss, and she specialized in employment law. Her office was in a high-rise downtown, and she could see me that afternoon if I could get there by 3. I told her I could. I left work early. Nobody noticed. Patricia was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun and the kind of handshake that told you she didn't waste time. Her office was neat, almost severe, a desk, 2 chairs, a wall of law books that looked actually used. Tell me what's happening, she said. I told her, all of it. The gradual exclusion, the meetings I'd stopped being invited to, Derek's presentation, Jennifer's emails. I showed her the timeline I'd built and the forwarded email from Jennifer. She listened without interrupting, making occasional notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. Has anyone told you explicitly that your job is in danger? No. Has anyone documented performance issues, formal complaints, warnings? Not that I know of. Have you been asked to sign anything unusual? Performance improvement plans? Role modifications? No. She tapped her pen against the legal pad. What you're describing is textbook marginalization. It's common in corporate environments, especially with long-term employees. But marginalization isn't illegal. What would make it illegal is if they're doing it as pretext for termination, or if there's discrimination involved. My son is trying to push me out of the company I helped build. That's not illegal either. Her voice was gentle but firm. Family dynamics complicate things, but legally Derek is your colleague, not your son. If he's making legitimate business decisions, they're not legitimate. He's documenting me as a problem to justify. I stopped. To justify what? That's the question. Patricia leaned forward. What do you think the end game is? I'd been asking myself that for weeks. They want me gone, but they can't fire me without cause, so they're building a case. Building a case requires documentation, formal documentation. Do you have access to your personnel file? I could request it. Don't. Not yet. If you request it now, it signals that you're aware something's happening. That gives them time to clean up inconsistencies or accelerate whatever they're planning. She made another note. What I need you to do is document everything from this point forward. Every meeting, every email, every conversation, dates, times, witnesses. If they're building a case against you, we need to build a better one. And then what? Then we see what they do next. If they terminate you without cause, we have a wrongful termination case. If they manufacture cause, we have a fraud case. Either way, you'll have leverage. I don't want leverage. The words came out harder than I'd intended. I want them to stop. Patricia's expression didn't change. Then you need to understand something. In situations like this, stopping it means escalating it. Once you start pushing back, things get worse before they get better. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Derek's smile in my office. I thought about Jennifer's emails. I thought about sitting in meetings where people I'd trained treated me like furniture. Yes, I said. She nodded. Then let's get to work. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and the photos from Derek's office, building a strategy. Legal action would take months and accomplish nothing. Even if I could prove wrongful termination, the best I'd get was a settlement and a reference. Derek and Jennifer would stay in their positions. Rachel would go back to her consulting job. They'd all move on with their lives while I became a cautionary tale about employees who couldn't adapt. That wasn't acceptable. I needed something that would hurt them the way they'd hurt me. Not physically, I wasn't interested in violence. But professionally, socially, permanently, I needed to expose them. The problem was that everything they'd done was carefully constructed to seem reasonable from the outside. Succession planning, performance management, organizational efficiency, all perfectly normal business practices. Unless you could prove they were targeted. Personal, coordinated. I started going through the photos again, looking for patterns. The emails were mostly routine, meeting requests, project updates, status reports, but there were phrases that repeated. Legacy mindset, resistance to change, communication barriers, corporate euphemisms for get rid of Gerald, and then I found it, an email from Jennifer to Derek from back in March. Per our discussion, I've started documenting GP's interactions with the team. Nothing formal yet, just building the file. Should have enough by Q2 to start the conversation with legal. Stay consistent with the messaging. We need everyone on the same page before we move. GP Gerald Patterson. This email proved coordination. It proved they'd been building a case from the beginning, and most importantly, it proved Jennifer was using her HR position to target a specific employee for personal reasons. That was actionable. Not legally, not quite, but reputationally. I forwarded the photo to my personal email and made 3 backup copies on different drives. Then I started looking at who else was in the email chains. Mark Jessup had been CC'd on several messages about budget reallocation that coincided with my accounts being transferred to Derek. Linda Okoye had participated in discussions about client relationship optimization that resulted in me being excluded from meetings. They weren't masterminding anything, they were just going along with it, following Derek's lead, treating it as normal business. But they were complicit, and complicity was useful. Over the next 2 weeks, I built a comprehensive file. Every email, every timeline entry, every fabricated performance issue. I cross-referenced dates with my own calendar and found discrepancies. Meetings Derek claimed I'd missed that had never been scheduled. Deadlines I'd allegedly blown that didn't exist in any project tracking system. It was sloppy work. They'd been so confident I wouldn't fight back that they'd gotten careless. I also started paying attention to the social dynamics at Meridian. Who ate lunch with whom, who took smoke breaks together, who stayed late, and who left early. I mapped the informal networks, the relationships that mattered more than the organizational chart. Derek was popular, but not universally. There were people in ops who resented his promotions, who felt he'd skipped steps and traded on connections rather than competence. Tom Brennan in IT was one of them. He'd applied for Derek's position and been passed over. Linda Okoye was another. She'd been with the company for 15 years and was still a senior manager, while Derek had shot past her in half the time. These were people who might listen if I gave them the right information. I started with Tom. We'd always gotten along, not friends exactly, but we'd worked together long enough to have mutual respect. I caught him in the parking garage one evening as he was leaving. "Tom, you got a minute?" He turned, surprised. "Sure. What's up?" "I need to ask you something, off the record." His expression shifted, curious but cautious. "Okay. Do you trust Derek?" He looked around the garage, checking for cameras, for other people. We were alone. "Oh, why are you asking?" "Because I think he's been playing games with personnel decisions, and I think you might have been affected too." Tom's jaw tightened. "You mean the director position?" "That was supposed to be yours. It was promised to me. Then Derek got brought in, and suddenly there was a restructuring, and the position went to him." He leaned against his car. "I was told my technical skills were better utilized in IT, that I was more valuable where I was." "Did Jennifer tell you that?" "How did you know?" I showed him one of the emails from Derek's office. Not the smoking gun, but a related message about optimizing talent placement. Tom's name was in it, along with a note from Derek. T. Brennan better suited for technical track. Won't challenge strategic decisions. He's been doing this to a lot of people, making decisions that benefit him while pretending they're about organizational efficiency. What are you planning to do about it? I'm not sure yet, but when I figure it out, you'll be the first to know. I had similar conversations with 3 other people over the next week. Quiet conversations in parking garages and coffee shops and empty conference rooms. I didn't show them everything, just enough to confirm what they already suspected. Derek wasn't as popular as he thought he was. Meanwhile, I kept up appearances at work. I attended meetings. I responded to emails. I even sent Jennifer the project list she'd requested, a carefully curated version that showed me meeting every deadline and exceeding every metric. She sent back a polite thank you that I knew she'd never read. The calendar rolled into October. The separation agreement deadline was approaching. Jennifer had given me a week, but I'd stretched it to 2 by saying I needed to consult with my financial advisor. 3 days before the deadline, I got a call from Rachel. "Dad, we need to talk." "About?" "About the retirement package. Derek says you haven't given an answer yet." "I'm still considering it." "What's there to consider? It's a great offer, more than generous." "It's hush money." "That's not." She stopped. "Can we meet? Face to face?" "Why?" "Because I'm worried about you. Because this is getting out of hand. Because you're my father, and I don't want to see you destroy your life over pride." "Pride?" "Yes, pride. That's what this is, isn't it? You can't accept that it's time to move on, so you're turning it into some kind of conspiracy." I almost laughed. "Rachel, I have documentation, actual proof of what Derek and Jennifer have been doing." "What kind of proof?" "The kind that shows this has been planned since February. The kind that shows Jennifer has been building a false performance file. The kind that shows Derek has been systematically isolating me and transferring my accounts." "Where did you get this documentation?" "That doesn't matter. It matters if you stole it." The word hung in the air. "I didn't steal anything," I said carefully. "I accessed information I have legitimate clearance to access." "Did you break into Derek's office?" "How did you—" I stopped. She knew. Of course she knew. They'd probably noticed things moved, or checked the building security logs, or simply anticipated that I'd eventually push back. "Dad, listen to me very carefully." Rachel's voice had gone cold. "If you've taken confidential company documents, that's theft. If you've accessed secure areas without authorization, that's trespassing. Derek could have you arrested." "He won't." "Why not?" "Because I'll release everything I've found to the entire company. Every email, every fabricated performance issue, every piece of coordination between him and Jennifer. I'll show everyone exactly what they've been doing." "You'll destroy your own reputation." "I don't care about my reputation anymore." "Then think about mine. Think about Derek's career. Think about Jennifer." "I am thinking about them. That's the point." Rachel was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want, Dad?" "I want you to tell Derek that I'm not taking the buyout. I want you to tell Jennifer that her performance documentation is fraudulent. And I want all of you to understand that if you try to force me out, I will make sure everyone knows exactly how you did it." "That's blackmail." "That's self-defense." She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, feeling something that might have been satisfaction or might have been grief. It was hard to tell the difference anymore. That night, I got an email from Derek, not from his work account, from his personal Gmail. "Dad, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Come by the house tomorrow night, 7 p.m., just us." Just us. No witnesses. No paper trail. I sent back one word. No. His response came 30 seconds later. "Then I'm filing a police report about the break-in." I forwarded his email to Patricia Voss along with a message. "They're escalating. What are my options?" She called me 10 minutes later. "Don't meet with him alone. Don't communicate with him outside of official channels. And for God's sake, don't threaten to release those documents. That's extortion, and they can absolutely use it against you." So what do? You take the high road. You document everything, you keep your head down, and you let them make the next move. If they fire you, we sue. If they file a police report, we defend. But you cannot be the aggressor here. They started this. I know, but if you want any chance of winning, you need to be the victim, not the vigilante. I hung up and stared at the wall. Patricia was right. She was absolutely right. But I was done being the victim. The all-hands meeting was scheduled for October 15th at 10 in the morning. These meetings happened quarterly, the entire operations division crammed into the largest conference room while leadership presented updates on company performance, strategic initiatives, and organizational changes. I'd been to dozens of them over the years. They were usually boring, occasionally informative, and always ended with someone from HR reminding everyone about benefits enrollment. This one would be different. Derek was presenting. The agenda had been sent out a week in advance. Q3 review and Q4 strategic preview. Buried in the slide deck, which I'd gotten early access to through Tom Brennan, was a section titled Organizational Evolution. That's where he was going to announce the restructuring, my restructuring. I had 5 days to prepare. I started by creating a second version of Derek's presentation, Not to replace it, I didn't have access to the main presentation system, but to supplement it, to provide context he wouldn't want to share. I pulled together every email I'd photographed, every piece of fabricated documentation, every timeline entry. I organized it chronologically, with clear headers and highlighted sections. Then I exported it as a PDF and loaded it onto a thumb drive. I also printed copies, 30 of them, one for every person who would be in that room. On October 14th, the day before the meeting, I stayed late at work. Again. The security guard had stopped commenting on it. I'd become a fixture of the evening shift. At 8 p.m., I went to the large conference room where the all-hands would be held. The room had 2 projection systems. The main one at the front, controlled from the podium laptop, and a secondary one on the side wall that could be controlled from any device connected to the room's Wi-Fi network. The secondary system was meant for breakout presentations. Most people forgot it existed. I connected my laptop to the room's network and tested the secondary projector. It worked perfectly. I could control it from anywhere in the room, and it would display whatever I wanted on the side wall. Then I checked the seating arrangement. The room was set up theater-style with rows of chairs facing the main screen. Derek would present from the podium at the front. Jennifer would sit in the first row along with the other senior managers. I planned to sit in the back. That night, I barely slept. I ran through scenarios in my head, trying to anticipate how people would react. Would they believe me? Would they think I was unstable, desperate, vindictive? Would Derek be able to talk his way out of it? It didn't matter. I was past the point of calculating odds. At 9:30 the next morning, I arrived at the office carrying a messenger bag with my laptop and the 30 printed copies of the documentation. People were already gathering in the conference room, getting coffee, chatting in small groups. I got there early enough to take a seat in the back row, corner position, good view of the room, easy access to the door if I needed it. Derek arrived at 9:50, looking confident in his tailored suit. Jennifer was with him, carrying a portfolio folder. They stood at the front of the room, greeting people, shaking hands, playing the part of beloved leaders. Rachel was there too. I hadn't expected that. She must have driven up from D.C. specifically for this. She saw me in the back, and her expression tightened, but she didn't come over. At precisely 10 o'clock, Derek stepped to the podium. "Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. We've got a lot to cover today, so let's jump right in." He advanced to the first slide, a bar chart showing Q3 revenue growth. The numbers looked good. Derek made sure to point out which accounts had performed best, most of them accounts that had been mine 6 months ago. "This growth didn't happen by accident," Derek continued. "It happened because we've been willing to evolve, to move away from legacy approaches and embrace new strategies." Legacy approaches. There it was. He clicked to the next slide, which brings us to our Organizational Evolution Initiative. The room got quiet. People sensed what was coming. Over the past year, we've been evaluating our operational structure to identify areas where we can be more efficient, more agile, more responsive to client needs. This evaluation has led us to some important decisions about how we're organized and who leads what. I opened my laptop and connected to the room's Wi-Fi network. Effective November 1st, we'll be implementing a new account management structure that emphasizes team-based approaches rather than individual ownership. This will reduce our dependence on institutional knowledge and create more flexibility in how we serve clients. Translation. They were taking the last of my accounts. Derek advanced to the next slide. It showed a new organizational chart. My name wasn't on it. We're also announcing some transitions. Gerald Patterson, who many of you know has been with Meridian for over 2 decades, will be moving into a reduced capacity role while we explore some exciting opportunities for his next chapter. Reduced capacity role. Not retirement, not resignation, just reduction. Someone in the middle of the room raised their hand. It was Linda Okoye. "What does reduced capacity mean exactly?" Derek smiled. "It means we're giving Gerald the space to wind down his current responsibilities while he considers his options. We want to honor his contributions while also making sure the company continues to move forward. So he's being pushed out." The room got very quiet. Derek's smile didn't waver. "That's not how I'd characterize it. This is about evolution, about making sure everyone is in the right role for this phase of the company's growth." "Does Gerald agree with this characterization?" Linda looked back at me. Everyone turned. Derek turned too. He'd probably expected me to stay silent, to let him control the narrative. I stood up. "No," I said. "I don't agree with it." Derek's smile finally cracked. "Dad, this isn't the time. You said this is about evolution, about reducing dependence on institutional knowledge. But what you didn't say is that you've been planning this for 8 months. that you've been fabricating performance issues to justify it, that you've been coordinating with HR. I looked at Jennifer. To build a case that doesn't exist. Jennifer stood up. Gerald, that's simply not true. Show them the files, then. Show everyone the performance documentation you've been building, the missed deadlines that never existed, the communication gaps you invented. I don't know what you're talking about. Then you won't mind if I share what I found. I pulled out my phone and activated the secondary projector. The sidewall lit up with the first page of documentation, the timeline from Derek's office, with every phase of the plan clearly spelled out in his own handwriting. The room erupted. People were standing, pointing, reading the projected text out loud. Derek was talking, trying to regain control, but his voice was lost in the noise. I advanced to the next image, the email from Jennifer about building the file, then the fabricated performance reports, then the organizational charts that showed my name systematically being removed. This is confidential company information, Derek shouted. You had no right. I had every right, I said, because it's about me, because you've been using company resources to orchestrate a personal vendetta. That's not what this is. Then explain the timeline. Explain why you've been consulting with Rachel about how to manage me out. Explain why Jennifer started documenting me the same month you got promoted. Rachel stood up. Dad, stop. Why? Because it's embarrassing? Because people are seeing what you really are? Because you're destroying yourself. No, I said. I'm destroying the lie you've been telling about me. I advanced to the next image, an email chain between Derek and Jennifer discussing the buyout offer. There was a line in Jennifer's message that I'd highlighted. If he doesn't take it, we proceed with termination for cause. Either way, he's gone by end of Q4. Someone in the front row stood up and walked out. Then another. Then 3 more. Derek was still talking, still trying to explain, but he'd lost the room. Even the people who'd supported him were looking at him differently now. The math was too simple, the timeline too clear. Jennifer tried a different approach. Everyone, please, let's all take a breath. Gerald is going through a difficult time. He's been struggling since his wife passed, and this kind of paranoid behavior is... Don't, I said. Don't you dare turn this into a mental health narrative. Everything I've shown you is documented. It's in Derek's own handwriting. It's in your emails. It's real. You broke into Derek's office, Jennifer shot back. You stole confidential documents. That's a crime. I accessed information I had legitimate clearance to see. And even if I hadn't, it doesn't change what's in those documents. It doesn't change what you did. Derek finally gave up trying to present. He stepped away from the podium and looked directly at me. You've made your point, Dad. Congratulations. You've humiliated me in front of the entire division. You've damaged my reputation, probably ended Jennifer's career, and alienated Rachel. Are you happy now? The room was silent. No, I said. I'm not happy. I'm angry. I'm betrayed. I'm a lot of things. But happy isn't one of them. Then what do you want? I want you to admit what you did. I was trying to help the company. Admit what you did to me. Derek looked at me for a long moment. Around us, 60 people waited. I wanted you gone, he finally said. You were holding things back, making everything harder than it needed to be. I tried to do it the right way, give you a good exit, let you keep your dignity, but you wouldn't take it. Because it wasn't real. None of it was real. The performance issues, the concerns about my mental health, the corporate speak about evolution, it was all just a story you told to justify getting rid of me. Yes. Derek's voice had gone flat. Yes, it was a story, and it would have worked if you'd just gone along with it. There it was, the admission, recorded on a dozen phones around the room. I closed my laptop. I'm done. I walked out of the conference room, through the hallway, down the stairs, out of the building. Behind me, I could hear voices rising again, people arguing, phones ringing. I didn't look back. I drove home in silence. No radio, no phone calls, just the sound of the engine and the road. My phone was buzzing constantly in the passenger seat. Calls, texts, emails. I ignored all of it. There would be time for consequences later. Right now, I just needed to breathe. The house was empty when I got there. It was always empty. Ellen had been gone for 2 years, and I'd never bothered to fill the silence she'd left behind. I'd just learned to live in it. I poured myself a bourbon and sat on the back porch. It was a clear October day, the kind that reminds you why people live in Maryland. Cool air, bright sun, leaves starting to turn. My phone finally stopped buzzing around 2 in the afternoon. Then it started again with a single call that I actually answered. Patricia Voss. What did you do? She asked. What I had to. You just committed career suicide. You know that, right? Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely. You publicly accused senior management of conspiracy, shared confidential documents without authorization, and recorded a private conversation without consent. Meridian's lawyers are going to destroy you. Let them try. Patricia was quiet for a moment. The recording was smart, actually. Derek's admission might protect you from retaliation claims, but you're still going to face consequences. I know. Was it worth it? I looked out at the yard, at the empty space where the oak tree used to be, at the house I'd raised my children in. Ask me in a month, she sighed. I'll start drafting our defense. Expect a lawsuit by the end of the week. She hung up. I sat on the porch until the sun started to set, drinking bourbon and trying not to think about what came next. But my phone wouldn't let me rest. The texts were piling up. From Rachel. I can't believe you did that. Don't contact me again. From Derek. You're going to regret this. From Jennifer. Legal is being notified. Prepare for consequences. From Tom Brennan. That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Drinks on me when this is over. From Linda Okoye. About time someone stood up to him. Call me if you need anything. From numbers I didn't recognize. Saw what happened at Meridian. Want to hear your story? I deleted most of them, kept a few, tried to figure out how I felt. Vindicated, maybe, satisfied, not quite, destroyed, probably, but also free. For the first time in 8 months, I wasn't playing defense. I wasn't documenting every conversation, second-guessing every email, wondering when the axe would fall. The axe had fallen. I'd been the one holding it. That night, I got a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a brief moment I wondered if it was Derek coming to finish the argument we'd started in the conference room. It wasn't Derek, it was a process server. Gerald Patterson? Yes. He handed me an envelope. You've been served. I opened it after he left. Temporary restraining order, filed by Derek. I was prohibited from contacting him, entering Meridian's offices, or accessing company systems. A civil suit would follow, alleging theft of confidential information, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional interference with business relationships. I called Patricia. I got served, I said. I know. I'm looking at the filing now. It's aggressive, but it's mostly theater. They're trying to scare you into settling quietly. I'm not settling. Then we go to court. And I have to warn you, Gerald, this is going to get ugly. They're going to dig into every aspect of your life. Your finances, your mental health, your relationship with Ellen, everything. Are you prepared for that? Do I have a choice? You always have a choice. You could still take a settlement, walk away with something. What would I be walking away to? She didn't have an answer for that. Over the next few days, the story spread. Someone had leaked the video of the all-hands meeting to a corporate gossip blog. It went viral within the logistics industry. Not mainstream news, but big enough that everyone in our professional circle saw it. The comments were split. Half the people thought I was a hero. Half thought I was a bitter old man who couldn't handle irrelevance. Nobody was neutral. Meridian put out a statement. We're disappointed by the recent events involving a former employee who violated company policies and betrayed the trust of his colleagues. We're pursuing all available legal remedies and remain committed to our values of integrity and professionalism. Former employee. They'd already written me out of the story. Derek gave an interview to an industry publication. He called me troubled and unable to accept change. He said he'd tried to help me transition gracefully, but I'd chosen to lash out instead. Rachel didn't give any interviews, but she posted something on LinkedIn about the importance of professional boundaries and the dangers of letting personal conflicts affect workplace culture. Jennifer went on administrative leave while HR investigated the ethics of her involvement. The investigation would probably find nothing actionable. She'd been careful. I stayed home. I didn't have anywhere else to go. A week after the all-hands meeting, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Patterson? This is James Chen. I'm the CEO of Meridian Solutions. I sat up straighter. Mr. Chen? I wanted to reach out personally to discuss what happened. I've reviewed the documentation you presented, and I have some concerns about how this situation was handled. Concerns? Yes. I want to be clear that I don't condone how you obtained or shared that information, but I also can't ignore what it revealed about internal processes. I'd like to meet with you, privately. No lawyers, no recordings, just a conversation. About what? About finding a resolution that works for everyone. Everyone didn't try to force me out of my job. I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. but continuing down this path, litigation, public conflict, doesn't benefit anyone. It certainly doesn't benefit you. What are you offering? A conversation, that's all. 45 minutes of your time? If you don't like what I have to say, you walk away and we proceed with the legal process. But I think you might find it worthwhile. I thought about it. Patricia would tell me not to go. Rachel would tell me it was a trap. Derek would tell me I didn't deserve the opportunity. When? I asked. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. My office. I'll be there. I hung up and immediately called Patricia. Don't go, she said, as soon as I'd explained. Why not? Because it's a setup. They want you to say something incriminating or agree to something that weakens your position or just size you up before trial. Nothing good comes from these conversations. What if he's serious about settling? Then he can put an offer in writing and send it to me. You don't negotiate directly with the CEO of a company that's suing you. I'm going anyway. Gerald, I need to know what he wants, and I need to look him in the eye when he tells me. She was quiet for a long moment. Fine, but I'm coming with you, and if he objects to my presence, we leave immediately. Deal. We hung up. I spent the rest of the night trying to figure out what James Chen could possibly want to say to me that would make any of this better. I couldn't think of anything. James Chen's office was on the 5th floor of Meridian's headquarters, in a corner suite with windows overlooking the harbor. I'd only been there twice before, once when I was first hired, once at a company anniversary event. It was exactly as I remembered: sleek furniture, abstract art, a desk so clean it looked like it had never been used. Chen was standing by the window when Patricia and I arrived. He turned and smiled, extending his hand. Mr. Patterson, thank you for coming. This is my attorney, Patricia Voss. Chen's smile didn't falter. Of course. Please, both of you, sit. We sat. Chen took the chair across from us, not behind his desk, a deliberate choice to seem approachable. I'll get straight to the point, he said. What happened at the all-hands meeting was unacceptable. Not your disclosure, though we'll address that, but what you disclosed. The coordinated effort to force you out, the fabricated documentation, the abuse of HR processes. None of that represents the company I'm trying to build. You're the CEO, I said. You could have stopped it at any time. I didn't know it was happening. Derek reports to the CEO, not to me. Jennifer reports to the head of HR. There are layers between us, and those layers failed. Convenient. Chen's expression hardened slightly. Mr. Patterson, I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to fix a problem. Derek and Jennifer have been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. We're reviewing every personnel decision made in the past year, and we're prepared to offer you full reinstatement with back pay for any accounts or responsibilities that were improperly transferred. Patricia leaned forward. What about the lawsuit? We'll drop it, all of it. The restraining order, the civil claims, everything. Clean slate. In exchange for? In exchange for Mr. Patterson signing a non-disclosure agreement about the events of the past year and agreeing not to pursue legal action against the company or any individual employees. I looked at Patricia. She looked at me. What happens to Derek? I asked. That's still being determined, but I can tell you he won't be returning to his current position. And Jennifer? Same answer. And Rachel? Chen paused. Rachel Patterson is not a Meridian employee. Her involvement was as an external consultant, and that contract has been terminated. What happens to her professionally is not my concern. But you're protecting Derek and Jennifer. No criminal charges, no public consequences. Just administrative leave until this blows over, then you'll quietly move them to different positions? I'm protecting the company, Chen said, which means containing the damage and moving forward. Derek and Jennifer made mistakes, but they are talented professionals who acted, misguided though it was, out of what they believed was the company's best interest. They acted out of ambition and vindictiveness. Perhaps, but if we turn this into a public scandal, everyone loses. Our clients lose faith. Our employees lose stability. And you become the face of corporate dysfunction instead of the victim of it. He was right. I hated that he was right, but he was. What about the people who helped them? I asked. Mark Jessup, Linda Okoye, all the people who went along with it? Anyone who participated in the coordinated effort will face appropriate consequences. But we're not conducting a witch hunt. People make mistakes. They follow bad leadership. That doesn't mean they should lose their careers. Patricia spoke up. What's the timeline for this offer? You have 48 hours to respond. After that, we proceed with litigation. And if we counter? Then we negotiate. I'm not unreasonable, Ms. Voss. I just want this resolved. We left 30 minutes later with a written settlement offer and a headache. In the parking garage, Patricia turned to me. It's a good offer. I know. You'd be back at work within a month. Full reinstatement, back pay, no legal exposure. Derek and Jennifer out of your way. It's about as good as you could hope for. But they don't face real consequences. No, they don't. Welcome to corporate America, where power protects power. I leaned against my car. What would you do? Me? I'd take it. Because fighting this will cost you years and tens of thousands of dollars, and at the end of it, you'll probably get less than what's on the table right now. But I'm not you. What does that mean? It means I don't have to live with the decision. You do. So ask yourself what you actually want. Revenge, justice, your job back, peace, because you probably can't have all of them. I drove home thinking about her question. What did I want? I'd wanted Derek to admit what he'd done. He had, in front of 60 witnesses. I'd wanted people to know the truth. They did. The video was still circulating. I'd wanted consequences, and there were consequences, just not the ones I'd imagined. Derek had been demoted. Jennifer was under investigation. Rachel had lost a consulting contract. My reputation in the industry was split between vindicated whistleblower and unstable saboteur. We'd all lost something. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the settlement offer and a glass of bourbon. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of old wood. I thought about Ellen, about what she would have wanted me to do. She'd always been better at letting things go than I was. Better at choosing peace over vindication. She'd probably tell me to take the settlement, go back to work, rebuild what I could. But Ellen wasn't here, and I couldn't ask her what she thought anymore. I was on my second bourbon when my phone rang, unknown number. Hello? Dad, it's me. Derek. I almost hung up, but something kept the phone against my ear. What do you want? I wanted to apologize. I waited. I know you probably don't believe me, he continued, and I know an apology doesn't fix what I did, but I need you to hear this. I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted... He stopped. I don't know what I wanted. To prove myself, maybe. To show that I could run things better. To stop living in your shadow. So you tried to erase me? Yes. And I was wrong. Jennifer was wrong. All of it was wrong. Is this part of Chen's damage control? No. He doesn't know I'm calling. This is just me trying to tell my father that I'm sorry. I took a sip of bourbon. Okay. Okay? I hear you. I don't forgive you, but I hear you. Derek was quiet for a moment. Are you taking the settlement? I don't know yet. I hope you do. I hope you come back. Not because it makes things easier for me, but because you deserve to finish your career on your own terms. My own terms got stolen 8 months ago. I know, and I can't give that back. But maybe you can build something new. Maybe. We sat in silence for a few seconds. Rachel wants to call you too, Derek said, but she's afraid you'll hang up on her. I probably would. She's sorry too. She got caught up in the strategy of it all and forgot. Forgot I was her father? Yeah. Tell her I'm not ready to talk yet. Maybe someday. Not now. I will. Derek cleared his throat. I have to go. But Dad, thank you for answering. He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, trying to figure out if that conversation had changed anything. It hadn't, but at least it had happened. The next morning I called Patricia. I'm taking the settlement, I said. Good choice. But I want one modification. What's that? I want a clause that says Derek and Jennifer can never work for Meridian again. Not transferred to different positions, gone, permanently. Chen won't agree to that. Then there's no deal. Patricia sighed. I'll try. But you're asking him to fire his director of strategic operations and put the company at risk of wrongful termination suits from both of them. I'm asking him to commit to actual consequences instead of corporate shuffle. I'll make the call. She called back 3 hours later. He agreed. Derek and Jennifer are out. Terminated for cause. They'll both get severance, but they're done at Meridian effective immediately. And the rest of the settlement? Unchanged. Full reinstatement, back pay, NDA. You sign, this all goes away. Set up the signing. I'll be there. I hung up and looked around my empty house. I'd won, sort of, in the limited, unsatisfying way that corporate victories happen. Derek was gone, Jennifer was gone. I'd get my job back, and I'd destroyed my relationship with both my children in the process. Fair trade? I honestly didn't know. The settlement signing happened on a Tuesday morning in a conference room that wasn't the one where I'd exposed Derek. Different floor, different windows, different energy. Patricia was there, along with Meridian's head counsel and James Chen. We went through the documents page by page, standard legal language about mutual release of claims, non-disparagement, confidentiality. I signed where they told me to sign. When it was done, Chen shook my hand. "Welcome back, Mr. Patterson. We're glad to have you." "I'll believe that when I see it." He smiled thinly. "Fair enough." I started back at Meridian the following Monday. My office was exactly as I'd left it. Nothing had been moved, nothing had been changed. Someone had even watered the plant on my windowsill. The first day was awkward. People didn't know how to act around me. Some avoided eye contact. Some went out of their way to be friendly in a way that felt performative. A few, Linda Okoye, Tom Brennan, treated me normally, which I appreciated more than they probably knew. Derek's office on the 4th floor was empty. The nameplate had been removed from the door. Someone told me he'd cleaned out his desk over the weekend and hadn't said goodbye to anyone. Jennifer was gone too. The HR department was pretending she'd never existed. Rachel hadn't tried to contact me. I hadn't tried to contact her either. I threw myself into work, got reassigned most of my old accounts, started rebuilding relationships with clients who'd been transferred to other managers, attended meetings where I actually spoke and people actually listened. It felt normal. Almost. But normal is relative when you've burned down everything around you to save yourself. 3 weeks after I returned, I was working late on a Friday night. Old habits die hard. When I heard footsteps in the hallway. I looked up and saw Derek standing in my doorway. He looked different, thinner, tired, like he'd aged 5 years in a month. "Can I come in?" he asked. I should have said no. I should have called security, but I didn't. "What are you doing here?" "I still have building access until the end of the month. I wanted to pick up some things I'd left behind." He gestured vaguely toward the 4th floor. "Thought I'd stop by and see if you were here." "I'm here." He stepped inside but didn't sit. "How's it going?" "Fine." "Good. That's good." He looked around my office like he was seeing it for the first time. "I used to come in here when I was first hired. Do you remember? I'd ask you about clients, about how to handle difficult conversations. You always had an answer. You stopped asking." "I know." He shoved his hands in his pockets. "I stopped asking because I thought I didn't need the answers anymore. Thought I'd figured everything out on my own. Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things." "What are you doing, Derek?" "I'm trying to apologize. Really apologize. Not the corporate version where I'm managing my liability. The actual human version where I tell my father that I'm sorry for everything I did." I leaned back in my chair. "Okay, I'm listening. I was jealous of you. I've been jealous my whole life. You were always the guy everyone respected, the guy who knew how everything worked. And I was just Derek, Gerald's son, riding your coattails. When I got promoted, I thought it was my chance to prove I was more than that. But instead of building my own reputation, I tried to tear down yours. And that was unforgivable." "Yes, it was. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did, and I understand what it cost." "What did it cost?" "Everything. My job, my marriage. Jennifer and I separated last week. My relationship with Rachel, my relationship with you." He looked directly at me. "Was it worth it? What you did at the all-hands meeting?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Ask me in a year." Derek nodded slowly. "Fair enough." He turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're back. The company needs you more than it ever needed me." He left before I could respond. I sat there for a long time after he'd gone, staring at the empty doorway. The next morning, I got a text from Rachel, just 3 words. "Can we talk?" I didn't respond immediately. I let it sit there for a few hours while I went through emails and attended a client call. Finally, I typed back, "Not yet." She sent 3 more texts over the next week. I didn't respond to any of them. Some things heal with time, some things don't heal at all. I wasn't sure which category this fell into, and I wasn't ready to find out. Work continued. Days became weeks. The gossip about what had happened died down. New scandals emerged. People moved on. I didn't move on exactly, but I stopped actively dwelling on it. One evening in late November, I was locking up my office when I ran into Linda Okoye in the hallway. "Heading out?" she asked. "Yeah. You?" "Same. Want to grab a drink?" We ended up at a bar 2 blocks from the office. Nothing fancy, just a place with good beer and better wings. "Can I ask you something?" Linda said after we'd ordered. "Sure." "Do you regret it? What you did?" "Which part?" "All of it. The investigation, the exposure, the whole thing. Do you wish you'd handled it differently? I thought about Derek standing in my doorway, about Rachel's unanswered texts, about the settlement that had saved my job but couldn't save my family. I don't know, I said honestly. I wanted them to face consequences. They did. But the consequences were bigger than I'd planned, and they hit people I didn't mean to hurt. Like who? Like me? Linda raised her glass. To messy victories. To messy victories. We drank. On my way home, I thought about Ellen, about what she would have said if she'd been there to see all of this unfold. She probably would have told me I was being stubborn, that I was choosing pride over peace, that I was hurting myself more than I was hurting anyone else. She probably would have been right, but she wasn't there. And I'd made the choices I'd made with the information I had and the anger I felt and the need to be seen as something other than obsolete. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house I'd lived in for 30 years. It was still empty. It would probably always be empty. But I was still here. And somehow, against all odds, that felt like enough. I walked inside, poured myself a bourbon, and sat at the kitchen table. My laptop was open to an email from a new client. One Derek had never touched, one Jennifer had never documented, one that was entirely mine. I started typing a response. Outside, the November wind rattled the windows. Inside, the house was warm. I was still here, still working, still fighting, and that, for now, was all I needed to be. The weeks rolled on. December came with its usual demands: year-end reporting, client holiday parties, budget planning for the new year. I attended all of it with the same steady presence I'd always brought to work, and slowly, imperceptibly, things started to feel normal again. Not the same, but normal. People stopped treating me like a curiosity. Projects got assigned based on competence rather than politics. Meetings became productive instead of performative. And then, 3 days before Christmas, I got a call from an unknown number. Mr. Patterson, this is William Greer. I'm on the board of directors at Meridian. I sat up straighter. Mr. Greer, what can I do for you? I wanted to reach out personally to thank you for what you did. I know that sounds strange, given everything that happened, but the board has been concerned about leadership issues in operations for some time. Your disclosure gave us the evidence we needed to make changes we should have made months ago. I wasn't trying to help the board. I know, but you did anyway. And I wanted you to know that we see it. We see you. James Chen is a good CEO, but he can't be everywhere. Having people in the organization who are willing to speak truth, even at personal cost, is invaluable. I appreciate that. There's another reason I'm calling. We're restructuring the operations division completely. New leadership, new mandate, new approach. And we'd like you to be part of it, not as a line manager. We think your skills are better used in a strategic advisory role. Senior Director of Client Relations, reporting directly to the COO. It's a promotion, Mr. Patterson, a significant one. I was quiet for a long moment. Why? I finally asked. Because you've earned it, and because this company needs people who care more about doing things right than doing things smoothly. Will you consider it? Yes, I said. I'll consider it. Good. We'll send over the details after the holidays. Enjoy your Christmas, Mr. Patterson. He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, trying to process what had just happened. A promotion, a real one, after everything. I called Patricia. They just offered me Senior Director of Client Relations, I said. Holy shit. Is that your legal opinion? That's my human opinion. My legal opinion is congratulations, you played this perfectly. I didn't play anything. You forced them to acknowledge your value by making it impossible to ignore. That's not luck, Gerald. That's strategy. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. I honestly didn't know anymore. That night, I sat on my back porch with a bourbon and looked at the empty yard, the space where the oak tree used to be, the house I'd raised my children in. My phone was in my hand. Rachel's last text was still unanswered. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed, "Coffee sometime in January?" The response came 10 minutes later. I'd like that. I set the phone down and took a sip of bourbon. Some things heal with time, some things don't heal at all, and some things heal slowly, imperfectly, in ways you don't expect. I wasn't sure which category this would fall into, but I was willing to find out. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of winter. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear Christmas music playing. I finished my bourbon and went inside. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work. I'd do my job, I'd rebuild what I could, and maybe, eventually, I'd figure out how to be something other than angry. But tonight, I was just tired and still here. and somehow that felt like victory enough.